All right, so it's been about 3 months since my last video, and at first there wasn't a lot going on, so there wasn't much to update, but then a ton of things have happened. So my plans have continued to evolve, and now they've changed again. So let me give you the highlights, and then I'll tell you more. I traveled with my parents to visit my grandparents up in Maine. I gave my dog to my sister. I went to London in May for a week and a half for work. I've had conversations at work about my role, which continues to fluctuate. I've changed my plans again. I've started selling a lot of items that I don't need on Facebook Marketplace finally. My apartment has become miserable to live in. I found a great local cafe to get my personal work done in, and I'm going to Hawaii at the end of the month. So let me back up a bit. Back in May, my parents drove up from Florida on their way to Maine to visit my dad's folks. My grandparents are 89 years old. They've both developed dementia, quite severe in the case of my grandfather. And I was really lucky in that I grew up in the same town with both sets of grandparents. However, I've always had a really special connection with my father's parents, and in particular, my grandfather. We spent a lot of time when I was growing up talking politics, and he's had a really big influence on my life. So it was a really difficult trip, but I'm happy I made it, since it could be the last time that I get a chance to see them. We brought my dog Hyde, which was great on the trip, and it was nice because he provided some distraction when we visited them, because conversation can become really difficult with dementia patients, but having a dog around is kind of a nice, happy distraction. After the visit, my parents then took Hyde with them back to Florida so he could go live with my sister in anticipation of me moving to London. But if you can tell by the room that I'm sitting in, you will realize that I'm still in the same apartment. It's now July and I have not yet moved. But I'll get to that more in a minute. Hyde now lives in Florida with my sister, her husband, their 13-year-old son, and their cat named Milo. She sends me lots of updates, especially when she first got him, and she's asked me lots of questions after he got there. I think he's adjusting really well. They also love him very much, so I'm really happy that everything seems to have worked out with him. I do miss him a lot, but it's really nice to not have to feel guilty whenever I go out, whenever I have to run an errand, meet up with a friend. Plus, I'm focused heavily on getting out of Dodge. On that front, my CEO sent me to London in May for a week and a half. My mission was to come back with a job description based on what my role should be while I'm there. Secondarily, I was also supposed to explore the different neighborhoods in the city and determine if I still wanted to move, which is a no-brainer, and if so, into what neighborhood. Overall, it was a wonderful trip. I checked out lots of neighborhoods that were relatively easy to get to from our office. Went to Putney, Battersea, Wandsworth Town, Fulham, Parsons Green, and Richmond. And based on all my criteria, I concluded that Richmond would be best for me, especially since our office is there. The commute could end up being just a walk away, which, with paying for metro or the tube, could end up being really expensive. The neighborhood's also lovely. It's safe, nice places to walk. The overground has express trains right into Waterloo, which is right downtown London. But that was the easy part of the objectives for the trip. The mission to determine my role didn't end up working out so well. My CEO was also in London at the time. It became pretty clear that there just isn't enough work in our London office at this point to justify me moving over. Womp womp. What a disappointment that was. So I came back a little bit frustrated, but now I have renewed determination to figure out my path to Europe. Back in our DC office, the last couple of months have been all over the map when it comes to my career path and what it's going to be going forward. We brought in a consultant to help improve product management. At one point, I'd wanted to get into product management, but due to reasons I'm not going to get into, that didn't end up happening. However, new conversations have brought this option back to the table, and they're potentially looking at me to run product management. But unfortunately, I'm now only kind of half-heartedly interested, as it would end up meaning no trips to London, even if a spot opens up and there's enough work for me there, and possibly having to deal with some workplace politics that just may not make the promotion worth it. Not to mention, no traveling around Europe. Most recently, it looks like that potential role change may no longer even be an option either. So at this point, I'm just continuing my existing role, which, to be honest, is not exceedingly stressful, so I can't really complain in the short term about what's going on. But what does this mean for all of my plans? It means that they've changed yet again. If you recall my 3 options from episode 3, I'm now planning on option 3, which is, if you remember, was to say, screw it. quit my job, travel to Europe for a while, and figure things out along the way, with the eventual plan to still be starting a business and settling in my favorite Western European city, which I have to figure out which one that is. To that end, I finally started selling all the junk I started talking about in the last episode 3 months ago. I've already sold a tent, a bookshelf, this hoverboard balance scooter thing, a magic bullet blender, a Fitbit, poker chips, and my old bike. The Facebook Marketplace is actually super convenient, and I like selling things better there than I ever did on Craigslist. And I think it's the Messenger app makes it really easy to communicate with people. They can just message you, you can see their profiles, and if they're sketchy and all of that really quickly. So I'm sort of getting a little addicted to selling things. It's worked out really well. I probably have another 10 things listed for sale, and I'm going to add a couple more things. I at least, at the bare minimum, want to get rid of one more large piece of furniture I don't need, so that I won't have to worry about fitting things into my storage unit. The greatest challenge I now have before I up and quit my job, move in with my parents temporarily in Florida, and then fly off for a year or two of travel, is to get out of my apartment lease. Which brings me to the next item on the things I listed at the beginning. My apartment has become absolutely miserable to live in. It's now officially summertime, our pool's been open, and the new apartment management company has no rules against bringing music to the pool. The rule is no loud music, whatever that means, and they don't seem to enforce it. I won't get into the specifics, but that issue, coupled with a new neighbor that I have who is a digital designer, works from home, and never sleeps during normal sleeping hours, means I'm kept up all the time. It doesn't help that I grew up in a field in Maine, and I'm probably overly sensitive to these things. I've begun logging regular complaints with the apartment complex, which I'm hoping will actually allow me to break my lease without paying the exorbitant fee eventually. If that doesn't work, I'll either have to pay that $4,000 fee, which I refuse to do, wait until they find someone to fill my apartment, which seems unlikely as there are now a ton of vacant units in this building, or wait until my lease expires in January. So, worst case, I will not be able to launch the new chapter of my life until January of 2018. But there are worse things, though, so I'll continue with my planning, and I'll keep you updated as things change. I don't want to end this video on a negative note, so I have 2 exciting things to mention as well. First, I found this great cafe that's only a 10-minute drive away from my apartment. It's nice and large with outdoor seating. There's always a place to sit. The staff are really nice, and I now go there 2 to 3 times a week to work on my online classical music course that I'm taking through Coursera and making all of these plans. I've been attending a lot of classical music concerts and operas lately, which has been very enlightening and pretty awesome. So when I get to Europe, I'm most certainly going to try to continue expanding my knowledge of historical music and art, which has always been an interest of mine, particularly in music. Second, I'm taking a 2-week trip to Hawaii to visit one of my best friends who's been living there, taking care of her parents for the past couple of years. I've never been to Hawaii, and I'm in desperate need of a vacation. I think it's been over 4 years since I've had a real vacation. I don't know what I've been doing. We haven't made any real plans yet, but my flight's booked and I leave at the end of the month. So getting away should help provide that extra motivation I need to get all these plans off the ground. Whew, that was a lot of information. I need to make sure I don't wait 3 months for my next episode. I hope you're all enjoying your summers, and thank you for listening.